welcome to this collaborative edition of Draft Utopia. I'm teaming up with Emmanuel Watson of Sports Head Radio, and we are going to discuss free agency news tonight. It'll be 30 minutes to an hour. Just got breaking news that Marquise Brown is officially signing with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes this offseason. So we'll go over some of the other signings, because there's a lot to digest here. I don't think we'll be able to get through the full course meal of free agent signings, Emmanuel, but just that's a big signing,
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a huge signing for the Chiefs. And the Chargers, you broke the news that the Chargers traded Keenan Allen to Chicago. I think the top five is pretty much set in stone. We'll see the QBs go 1 through 3, and I think we'll probably see the receivers go 4 and 5. I've had Bowers at 5 for a while now, but with the Chargers moving on from both Williams and Allen, I think it's very evident they draft Malik Neighbors. He's their number 1. Palmer's their number 2, and they use Johnston only in 3 receiver sets. I think that'll probably be the play. And then the Giants might have to settle for Rome Dunes at 6. I mean, that might be how this draft starts. We might have a top 3 QB run and a top 3 receiver run to start the draft. And wow, guests are flooding in. We already have 12 people in the live stream. I appreciate that very much. I know Emmanuel does as well. So thank you to the dozen people tuning in to listen to us. But the big moves had to be Kirk Cousins to Atlanta and Derrick Henry to Baltimore. And I already have a Derrick Henry thumbnail for Saturday's podcast, so I had to use a Cousins thumbnail for this one. But outside of those 2 moves, what do you think's been the biggest move in free agency so far, Emmanuel?
I say the Kirk Cousins move was definitely up there. My personal opinion, I really shifted the NFC South in general. So right now, you have to put the Falcons as the top contenders for that division. I feel like that should kind of shift the NFC a little bit, especially in regards to that division. I like Derrick Henry. I'm a Ravens fan. The run game got stronger, but it just depends on how. It just depends on how that plays out, with Derrick Henry with his age. So it's kind of like, see what happens. In terms of the one with the running game, I love it from him. So I think it's be very efficient. But I know at times that Derrick Henry struggled, running the ball with the shotgun. But it's going to be really interesting to see with that offense.
Agreed. And I look at some of the other free agent signings, and speaking of the Falcons, they did trade Desmond Ridder to Arizona for Rondale Moore today. I don't think any of the top 3 receivers are going to be there at 8. I would guess they're probably going to pick an edge rusher in the draft. But if they were to get one of the top 3 receivers, that guy would push Drake London for wide receiver 1 reps, and you can move Rondale Moore to the slot. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. But at the same time, if you could pull that off, that would be huge for Atlanta's offense. They would have a top 5 offense with all those pieces as early as next year. I think they're going to have a borderline top 10 offense. I think with Cousins, that offense could finish anywhere from 8th to 12th in total yards next year. That's going to be one of the top offenses in the NFC for sure.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I want to address a rumor, Chris, and it's about your team. If I'm not mistaken, you're a Patriots fan, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so I've heard some rumors that the Patriots have Jaden Daniels at the top of their draft board. Now, I don't know if this is true. I've heard that if Jaden Daniels is not there at 3, thank you. If he's not there at 3, then I'm hearing that it's a possibility that the Patriots will trade out of that pick and trade down and get some value. So I'm curious to see if that's a possibility.
It is a possibility, because I heard they were interested in Justin Fields. I don't know if there's any truth to that or if it's just a smoke screen. And, you know, You could trade down and get more picks. If you don't want to pick a quarterback at 3, you could trade down and get more picks, and you could get Justin Fields on the day of the draft for what the Bears are willing to give, and then apply the 5th-year tender, which the team that acquires Justin Fields will have until May 2nd to apply the 5th-year tender to Justin Fields. So you can trade down, get Joe Alt, get Olu Fashanu, and then you can trade for Justin Fields and get some more picks in the process if you do choose to move down. And ultimately, even though I love to see Marvin Harrison Jr. on the Patriots, I don't see that happening unless the Patriots trade for Fields before the draft. And the reality is, the longer this Justin Fields thing drags out, the less leverage the Chicago Bears are going to have. Honestly, it feels like they've lost all the leverage in their negotiations with Fields after today's Keenan Allen trade. Any leverage they would have had with Justin Fields, I think that's officially out the window now that Keenan Allen's on the Bears. I think we're going to get to the point where we start seeing teams offer only 4th, 5th round picks for Justin Fields, trying to lowball the Bears.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I 100% agree with you on that. And it just to me, the reason why I say this is because I think my personal opinion, the Patriots, to me, out of the top 5, is the wild card. Just think about it. I don't see Marvin Harrison Jr. being past Arizona at number 4 because there's no Marquise Brown. They just traded. They traded Rondale Moore, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, they're not passing on Marvin Harrison Jr. If he gets to number 4, the Bears are not passing on him. He's going to be a Chicago Bear.
Right. So I don't see him passing 4. So 4, and I do agree with you. I believe Malik Neighbors is at the perfect spot at 5 for the Chargers to take him.
And the Giants desperately need a number 1 receiver. They could mix things up and try get JJ McCarthy if they're that not sold on Jaden Daniels. If they're that not sold on Daniel Jones, excuse me, I said Jaden Daniels to the 30. I apologize to the 30 listeners listening to Emmanuel and I in Restream. I meant to say Daniel Jones. Yeah, if the Giants do not have any confidence in Daniel Jones, they could reach for McCarthy at 6. But I think I think if Neighbors and Harrison are off the board, they're going to grab Romo Dunes. It's going to be very similar to our group mock on Facebook, Emmanuel, where the QBs went the top 3, and then we see the receivers go through 4 through 6. And then I think the first tackle probably comes off the board to Tennessee at 7, and Atlanta probably goes edge rusher. Because I can't see Atlanta drafting Troy Franklin or Keon Coleman or Xavier Worthy or Adonai Mitchell at 8. That's too early. So I think they would probably take an edge rusher.
Right. No, I 100% agree with you on that.
And getting Rondale Moore for Desmond Ridder justifies that thought process. So, yeah.
Right, because the Falcons do need a number 2 receiver, but obviously they kind of solved it with Rondale Moore. And I don't know if you remember in the mock, before Xavier Worthy had his record 40 time, I had him being mocked to the Falcons. I believe it was the 43rd pick.
Yeah, in the first mock. I don't know if he'll fall that far in the second one.
Right. But at that time, this is before he ran his 40.
Yeah.
I was kind of targeting him in that second round. I'm like, okay, but obviously his draft stock is a bit high. And I expect Xavier Worthy to be a mid, at the very earliest, which I highly doubt a mid first. I'd say definitely a late first, early second round pick.
Agreed.
I feel like he's in that range. In terms of being drafted, I would love for Baltimore to get him because they released Odell Beckham. So they definitely need to get another receiver. Devin Duvernay signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was very critical with this team, the special teams, and he scored the game-winning touchdown against the Rams in overtime earlier in the season. And that was coming off of a bye from the Ravens. So I'm curious to see what receivers the Ravens are going to get. And obviously, they're being linked to Michael Thomas because he's about to get released from the Saints. But I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. And then quarterbacks and receivers, how they're going to fall. Well, like, this is a really deep wide receiver class, solid quarterback play. There's even quality O-line and defensive players in this draft. To be honest with you. And my thing is, I don't know if I can jump the gun. Personally, I think it's pretty obvious. Can I say the biggest loser so far?
Who do you think it is so far? Who do you think's made the worst moves in free agency so far? Just out of curiosity.
For me, it's the Dallas Cowboys. It's based on the lack of moves. I feel like they should have got a running back. They should have got a running back in this free agent class. But if not, I mean, I can see them getting a running back in the draft. I believe they're going to draft for it, my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I believe it's Jonathan Brooks, the running back from Texas.
Yeah.
Now, I can see the Cowboys drafting him, or I don't really see it getting Frank Gore.
Braylon Allen's my number one running back, but I've got Brooks at 2 following the combine. But it really feels like either A, Dallas is going to pay Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. That's the only – if Jerry Jones is a plan to pay all 3 of those guys after the draft, after the dust settles, that's really the only justification the Dallas Cowboys can make for not making a move at this point in free agency. That's really the only justification the Cowboys can make right now. Because if that's the plan – and your plan is to renegotiate those contracts post June 1st, that's really the only justification you can make for not making a move in free agency if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. And maybe they do. Maybe they figure this out and decide they're going to pay all these guys.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility in regards with, trying to pay out all their guys. So, I just see with the Cowboys, they're probably going to draft more likely a running back. I mean, they got Deuce Vaughn last year because his dad works the front office. And I'm a fan of Deuce Vaughn. I like his game.
And Dowdle's still on a rookie deal, I believe, for 1 or 2 more years. So that's good for Dallas. I'm guessing they would draft a 3rd running back at some point. Andrew Kermish took Trey Benson at pick 87 in the group mock. That's a great value if you can get him in the 3rd round. There's some people that have him in their top 50, and some people that have Benson out of Florida State as number 1 running back in this draft class. So that's really good value. I think you got to get a left tackle if you're Dallas and shore up that offensive line for Dak Prescott. And I think getting a left tackle in a rookie deal is a great way to go about that. I just think there's a lot of interesting storylines. The Titans went out. They got Tony Pollard from Dallas. They got Mason Rudolph. And they signed Calvin Ridley. They poached Ridley away from Jacksonville. It's nuts.
Yeah. I like the receiving core, with those 2. And then they got Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard in the backfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that combination, what they're doing in Tennessee. I'm just not sold on Will Levis as a quarterback.
Neither am I.
I'm not sold.
I think Mason Rudolph takes his job by midseason. Honestly, that's honestly how I feel about that situation.
Yeah, I'm just not sold on Will Levis. But, I mean, look, he has good arm talent. But I just feel like there's some parts of his game he has to be put together, be a little bit more, be more polished. But we'll see. I mean, I hope he makes those improvements to take Tennessee to that next level. But the positive thing with him is he has 2 good receivers. You have Hopkins, you got Ridley, you got 2 good running backs. So I like where the offense is going. But defensively, I feel like this team needs a little bit more work on Tennessee.
Yeah, agreed. And you look at where some of these guys are at. I look at, it feels like the Chiefs and every team in the AFC, the Chiefs and the 4 AFC North teams feel like the most complete rosters on paper. I really don't see a team that checks off every box in the AFC South. even though the Texans did do a nice job picking up DJ Wanham and Okuda. I mean, I'm not saying the Jaguars can't win the division because they certainly could win it next year, but I also feel like the Jaguars overpaid a lot of players. They overpaid Gabriel Davis. They overpaid Morse. They overpaid a lot of players hoping to get the exact same production they got from the previous teams. And honestly, I don't think they're going to get that.
Did they overpay for Duvernay? Oh, I forgot the terms of his deal.
Devin Duvernay is now on the Jaguars.
Right.
And
I don't know if you know the terms.
2 years, $8.5 million. That's a slight overpay. It's not we got to panic. We got to complain about how the Jaguars overpay. That's a slight overpay. Not a massive overpay, in my opinion. I mean, the Jaguars, I think Duvernay is going to replace Jamal Agnew. I think that's why they brought him in. I think Agnew's a UFA. And while they drafted Parker Washington, I don't think they want to thrust him into that return specialist role. So I'm guessing Kirk will be the number 1. Gabe Davis will be the number 2. Zay Jones will be the number 3. And Duvernay will be the number 4. And Parker Washington will be the number 5 guy. But they did bring in Darnell Savage after losing Rayshawn Jenkins, cutting Rayshawn Jenkins. They brought in Darnell Savage to compete with Andrew Wingard. And they do have Daniel Owens, former Auburn safety, back on a 2-year, $4 million deal. I don't know. I feel like the Jaguars may have downgraded at strong safety by moving on from Jenkins, but he didn't want to take a pay cut, and the Jaguars were like, see ya, so they moved on.
Right.
But honestly, if I'm ranking these AFC teams, I would probably put the Ravens at 1, the Chiefs at 2, and then I think you can make a case for the Browns, Bengals, or Steelers at 3 through 5, and then I would put the Texans at 6. Honestly, the AFC just doesn't look as exciting and as competitive as it did a year ago. Now, that could change after the draft, but I see maybe I think those are the only complete teams in the AFC right now as far as competitiveness, as far as being able to compete for a championship next season. I don't see a complete team in the AFC East right now. I mean, you can make an argument for the Texans in the South, but I also feel like the Jaguars, they haven't replaced Darius Williams. They're probably going to do that at 17 in the draft, I would think, because that's the one area they haven't replaced yet. And I would think that's going to take place at pick 17 in a really deep corner draft.
Right. It's just, I agree with you with the Ravens in terms of, having it roster-wise. And I know Mahomes, he restructured his deal. I believe it was over like $20 or $21 million that the Chiefs saved under the cap. So they could try to get some guys to improve the roster, which, rightfully so. So the Chiefs are, to me, are at the top in terms of,
I think the Chiefs will end up getting the 1 seed and the Ravens will get the 2 seed, but I think somebody will go into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs to make things easier for the Ravens, and the Ravens will end up knocking that team out in the AFC title. I don't know if it'll be the Bengals or the Browns, could be the Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Jets, but until the Jets fix their left tackle situation, I'm not going to go to bat for them. I'm just not. I'm not going to go to bat for any of these teams in the AFCs. They all have weaknesses right now. I mean, I go ahead.
No, did they get Moses Brown in the trade?
The Jets got Morgan Moses. He's going to be their new right tackle. And they got so I think the Jets also got John Simpson, the Ravens left guard, as a replacement to Laken Tomlinson, who I have no idea why the Jets cut Laken Tomlinson. He started every game the last 2 years. He was relatively a staple on that offensive line, so I don't get it. I don't.
Yeah. He was very reliable on the offensive line. And also there was another rumor about in regards to Alan Lazard. I believe they're shopping him on the trade market. So I'm curious to see what kind of value, if they gave value in return from Alan Lazard out there. I think they're doing it because I think they might be looking at another receiver in the draft. Yes,
I agree. I mean, you can upgrade at receiver in this draft. I mean, you have Garrett Wilson as your number one. Lazard's a solid number two. Bring a guy in to push Lazard for that number two spot if one's available in rounds 2 or 3. I could definitely see the value in that. And right now, I would say the only complete team in the NFC is the Lions. They did add a defensive tackle today in free agency, DJ Reader, and they traded for cornerback Carlton Davis. I think those two additions make their defense a lot tougher. And they did re-sign Graham Glasgow at right guard. They are still going to need a left guard to fill out that offensive line. But you can get one. You can get either Cooper Beebe or Graham Bartlow at pick 30 or 29. You can get one of those two at pick 29 right before the Ravens pick. So, I mean, that's the thing I'm looking at. I think there is an outside chance the guard run starts with the Lions and Ravens at picks 29 and 30 in the late first round. I have most of the guards with second round grades, but those teams still really haven't addressed their needs at guard. So I can see the guard run for this draft beginning at 29 and 30 when the Ravens and Lions are on the clock, back-to-back picks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What I like about this draft, honestly, there's so much depth at the wide receiver, the corner.
There is.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth, and I usually like drafts like this because I feel like you can find the value easier as the draft goes.
Agreed.
You find it, and then also, I mean, obviously you're going to have those draft picks where people overvalue more than others. You get those every year, like I was paying for, the biggest reach, things like that. But I want to talk about the Eagles for a second. I believe they just signed a linebacker from Tampa. There was a Devin White.
Yeah.
They signed a linebacker, Pro Bowler. Yeah, Devin White. So I actually really like that move for them. But obviously my biggest concern for the Eagles is they have to improve their secondary. It was just really garbage. Their secondary was really garbage. It was just trending downhill ever since from the middle to the end of the season in regards with them as a team. And their turnover margin wasn't great in terms of their offense. Hurts from the ball over more than, he had a really down year as a quarterback.
I think they're going to address all their needs in the draft. And I think the best case scenario, both the coordinators rebound. They get to the NFC title this year, but then everything goes downhill with Kellen Moore and Fangio in year 2. Like we saw with this. Because the Eagles lost both coordinators after they made the Super Bowl. And the guys they promoted just couldn't get the job done. So I do think it's going to be interesting because you bring in Landon Dickerson, you extend him. I think him or Cam Jurgens is going to move to center. Saquon Barkley's an Eagle. I do think they brought in Devontae Parker for the Patriots. I do think the Eagles have low-key had a good offseason because Parker would be the slot guy now next to Brown and Devonta Smith. And I do think the Eagles have low-key had a good offseason. I mean, they've done enough, in my opinion, to be the favorites in the NFC East. But that's not really saying a lot.
No, I agree. I'm curious to see what they're going to do in the draft in terms of the draft picks. Because obviously last year they did really good with drafting, mainly, front 4, front 7 guys.
Yep.
Last year, so I'm curious to see how are they going to do in terms of the draft picks with the Eagles. Same with the Cowboys. The Giants, I don't know. I'm really.
Yeah, the Jaguars brought in Eric Armstead from San Francisco. I know Trent Baalke drafted him when he was the GM for the 49ers back in 2015, but I'm just not sure how he fits a 34 scheme because Armstead played 43 at Oregon. He played 43 on the Niners. I'm just not sure how he translates to a 34 scheme in the NFL. Maybe he can transition to the scheme because he's being recruited by a guy who's familiar with him with Balky, but I don't know. For some reason, I still feel like the Texans are the team to beat because I feel like they check the most boxes of any AFC South team. I don't think they'd fare well against an AFC North team, but I think they could beat an AFC East team or any other team in a wild card game. If they drew a Chargers or Raiders or a Broncos due to a weak strength of schedule, I could see them whopping the floor with that team. The Texans, they're going to be good. I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with some of these free agency moves. I like the core the Packers have. I mean, I would put the Lions at 1 and the Eagles at 2, but I think you can make a case for the Rams and Cardinals being the top 2 in the NFC West. I really do. I mean, if the Cardinals draft Marvin Harrison Jr., I know I'm jumping the gun on this, but the Cardinals do have a favorable strength of schedule. And if they get Marvin Harrison Jr. and they have a really dominant draft, I could see them getting within striking distance of San Francisco. I don't know why, but I feel like the Seahawks will finish last in the division this year. But I don't know. It's too early to say.
I agree. Now, I was gonna say, I know we mentioned some other AFC South teams. And I'm back with the NFC. I'm sorry I'm going all over the place. But the Packers, me personally, I think they're going to be one of the most dangerous teams heading into next season. My personal opinion. I think the Packers are going to be a very dangerous team. The way Jordan Love played in the playoffs, I'm just curious to see what moves they're going to make as well. This Packers team is going to be very sneaky. I just have a gut feeling.
Yeah.
This Packers, they're going to be a very sneaky team, and it would have shocked me if they win the division next year. I'm just going to say it. It would have shocked me, but I do agree with you with Seattle finishing more likely last in the division. They lost Bobby Wagner. They lost Bobby Wagner. Yeah, they showed the quarterback position, but they lost some guys as well. So it seems like Mike McDonald is trying to rebuild that defense.
Yeah.
So the way he wants it, where he wants his scheme system out there in Seattle. So it seems like he wants it that way. And offensively, I feel like you don't have to do that tweak much. Yeah, they probably need to draft, some O-linemen, things like that. I like the corners,
Yeah. Witherspoon, Woolen.
Yeah. And
Bryant. Kobe Bryant, yeah.
I like their corners, to be honest with you. So I think they got something going on with that. And I feel like they nailed those picks right there. So, and obviously the receivers is there. I like the 2 running backs with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I really like that combination.
If the Packers can avoid playing the Eagles, or if the Packers can knock out the Eagles in the divisional round, I do think we'll get a Packers-Lions NFC title. If I had to make a second choice behind the Eagles for who's going to play the Lions in the NFC title, most would say the Rams. I actually think I would rank the Packers ahead of the Rams right now. I would put the Rams.
I agree.
At 4.
I'm sorry.
I would put
So the Packers have. How can I explain it? They have they have more depth as a team compared to the Rams. But the Rams have more holes. I feel like they're still in a way solving their holes for that team based on the Super Bowl that they won, because they went so all in on it, right?
Yeah.
To the point where a lot of those key guys are gone now. So I feel like for the Rams, it's still taking time. But the good news with this Rams team is they finally have draft picks. They're finally having a first-round draft pick. So I'm curious. So the Rams, I'm really curious to see how the way they draft too.
Yeah, they've done well in the late rounds. I mean,
right.
Cooper Cup round 3, Puka Nacua round 5, Kyron Williams round 5. I'm really curious to see how they do early because they've done better in the later parts of the draft. So I think
No. I'm sorry. You go ahead. No, I didn't.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Rams end up doing in this year's draft because having a good draft or a great draft, having a great draft will allow them to close the gap on some of the teams in the NFC. And if they have a good draft, I think they'll probably be fourth in this conference. I would rank them fourth behind Green Bay, Philadelphia, and Detroit. And the reality is, if the I think whoever doesn't win the division between the Packers and Lions will probably end up beating the Falcons in the wild card round and handing Kirk Cousins another playoff L in his career. And the 4-5 matchup, the Rams would probably draw the Eagles, and I like the Eagles and Philly in that one, but I could definitely see the Falcons finishing third simply because the NFC South is so. I mean, the Buccaneers are making an effort to retain their talent, and the Panthers are making a nice effort. They brought in Deontay Johnson. They got Robert Hunt. They also got who's the left guard they brought in? They brought in a really good left guard as well. The Panthers. I know Robert Hunt. They paid him $100 million, but I forgot who they brought in at left guard. They brought in Damian Lewis from Seattle, so that's another Seahawk lost. Damian Lewis, that's a big addition for Carolina, because and they're gonna move Austin Corbett inside from right guard to center, so that's big. The Panthers are gonna Shaun Robinson's gonna be the nose tackle, meaning Derek Brown can move over to 34. 34 right end's a better role for him, in my opinion, than nose tackle. But yeah, Shaun Robinson, you have Dane Jackson replacing the corner you just traded away. Crap. Donte Jackson. Yeah, Dane Jackson replacing Donte Jackson. I like Josie Jewell at middle linebacker. I bet Dan Morgan, the new GM, saw a little bit of himself in Josie Jewell, which is why the Panthers went out and signed him in free agency. But yeah, I think it's good. I think the South's going to come down to Atlanta and Carolina because I just love Dave Canales. I think Canales was the best coaching hire, and he got a 6-year deal as a former offensive coordinator. The last two offensive coordinators to get 6-year deals as head coaches were Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. And you can make the argument those are the two best offensive coaches in the NFC. Yeah, Dan Campbell's the best motivator. I'm not arguing that Dan Campbell isn't a great head coach. He's remarkable. What I'm saying is, from an offensive architect standpoint, Shanahan and McVay are the top two guys. And I think Canales has the chance to enter that conversation as well, with his contract being structured similar to those guys when they first got to the Rams and Niners.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you, what do you think about the Colts? I've been having, honestly, I'm making an early bold prediction. I think Anthony Richardson's going to have a breakout year next year.
I honestly think the Colts might finish second in the AFC South behind the Texans. I could see them getting that last wild card because I feel like the Colts have done more this offseason than the Jaguars. So I would put the Colts at 2 behind the Texans if I were ranking the teams right now.
Do you think that the Colts need another wide receiver in this draft?
Not if they get a receiver. I think he can be an upgrade over Alec Pierce, and it would allow you to have Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, and the rookie you just drafted as your top 3 wideouts, and Alec Pierce could be your number 4. And I think that would just be better for the Colts as a team. I don't know if they do that, but I think that would be better for them.
I like Alec Pierce in the slot more.
Interesting.
That's just me, but That's just me. But I do believe he's a solid receiver. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'm not saying. I think he's a really good solid receiver, and I just hope he gets more targets next season with Richardson there. But I just like the combination of Jonathan Taylor and Richardson. I just think Richardson's gonna really show out next year. You know what I'm saying? Like I really do. I think he's gonna be a breakout player.
I do too. I also have that feeling. It's Super Bowls in New Orleans next year. I kind of feel like this division's either going to go to Stroud or Richardson, and I feel like Richardson's going to break out next year because if Richardson breaks out next year, let's say the Colts and Panthers both win their divisions, because that was my prediction heading into free agency. I had the Colts and the Panthers as my division winners. Let's say that happens hypothetically. Okay, every quarterback in the 2023 draft looks like a success so far.
Right.
And all three guys are on pace to get extended. So that's good for those teams. I think the Colts are going to surprise people next year. And I don't know if they get in, but I think they've got the best shot to get in outside of the Chiefs and the AFC North teams and the Texans. Like if I'm ranking, I don't have an AFC East team in my top 7 this year, Emmanuel. If I'm ranking these teams 1 to 16, it's the Ravens, the Chiefs would be in 1 and 2. And then I think you can make an argument. I would probably put the Texans at 3, the Browns at 4. I'll put the Bengals at 5 ahead of the Steelers, but I really do question the fact that the Bengals franchise tagged Higgins, let Reader walk, and let a lot of guys that honestly didn't warrant extensions get extensions. So I would put the Bengals at 5 and the Steelers at 6 for that reason. But I think you can make the argument for the Colts at 7. So right now, I don't have an AFC East team in my top 8. I would put the Bills at 8, but honestly, I kind of want to see what these teams do in the draft before I make a verdict on the AFC East, because I don't feel like a team in the AFC East checks off every box right now. With the Bills losing everything they lost in the secondary, I don't see it right now.
Yeah, especially with Miami. Yeah, they cut some guys.
They lost Wilkins to the Raiders.
Right, that was a huge move on their front forward, and that was obviously a really great pickup for the Raiders.
Yeah, and the Dolphins got some other middle linebackers to replace Jerome Baker and the other inside linebacker they moved on from, but they're not moves that excite me, that get me going, okay, this team can rebound.
Right. And then obviously they have to put a deal up for Tua.
Yeah.
He's due for an extension, so that's part of the reason why they're cutting a lot of those guys for Miami, because they had to figure out a way to sign Tua to a long-term deal. And then I know Buffalo's doing whatever they can to try to save money and cut costs on their cap. They did. Speaking of Buffalo, I believe they got Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, they got Curtis Samuel today. The Dolphins got Kendall Fuller. So Kendall Fuller's their replacement for Xavier Howard, and the Bills are replacing Gabe Davis with Curtis Samuel.
Right. Which I think it's an upgrade. To be honest with you, it's just Curtis Samuel. He's been having like these little bit nagging injuries throughout his career.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, but when he's healthy and he can go, I think
the thing is, Khalil Shakir played better than Gabe Davis down the stretch, and I think Shakir has more upside. So I think Shakir will be the number 2, and Curtis Samuel will still be the number 3 if the Bills choose not to draft a receiver on day 1. If they do, then the receiver they draft will be the number 2, and Shakir will be number 3, and Curtis Samuel will be used as a number 4 receiver. But if the Bills don't draft a receiver on day 1, then I think they would probably end up getting a corner, because I think if the Bills don't draft a receiver at 28, they're probably going to take a corner in round 1 and a safety in round 2. That's probably what they'll end up doing. I think they're going to go safety round 2, but they could go receiver or corner in round 1.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see that. Now with the Niners, with Eric Armstead gone, they did sign I think it was a defensive tackle for the Panthers. Was it something Moss Goddard? They signed him, and the 49ers signed him in free agency. I have to look at his name. I think he was a first round draft pick. I think a year or two ago.
Yeah. Who is this? 49ers?
Yeah, they got a defensive tackle from the Carolina Panthers.
That's interesting. Because I heard the 49ers made some moves today. Yeah, Eric Kendricks ended up going to Dallas.
Right. I'm trying to figure out what is his name. The guy from Deebo Samuel changed his number to number 1.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about that. They got Malik Collins from the Texans. Yetur Gross-Matos.
Yetur Gross-Matos. He's an edge rusher. He struggled in Carolina. He got benched his final year for Justin Houston. I don't like that move. Honestly, I think that's a massive downgrade over Chase Young. If we're being honest, that's a massive downgrade because he was the starter for 3 years. He didn't do anything in Carolina. And then the 4th year, he gets benched for Justin Houston, who's like 37, 38. So the 49ers get him as a replacement to Chase Young. I almost think they downgraded in that respect. But as long as Nick Bosa and Drake Jackson are starting, I think he can have success as a situational edge. He's familiar with Steve Wilks' defense. That's probably why they brought him. Wait, they fired Steve Wilks.
Yeah.
So they handed Wilks the cornbread and basically gave Yetur Gross-Matos the leftovers in the cornbread. Okay. All right.
Oh, man. Yeah, I remember him being like a very highly rated prospect out of Penn State.
Yeah. And he just hasn't like panned out in that respect yet.
Right. He hasn't panned out, so I'm just like, yeah.
And why did Colton McKivitz, the human turnstile, as CJ Cuevas calls him, why did he get extended? 1 year, $7 million? You're going to roll with him at right tackle again. I don't understand, San Francisco. I legitimately don't understand your situation here.
Yeah, I don't get it. I really don't. So,
yeah, we might have a power outage at some point. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm saying it might happen because it's thundering where I live. And I heard there's already a tornado warning in Cleveland. And it's not going to affect me in Pittsburgh, but it could affect Erie, and it could affect Kentucky, and it could affect the downward area of Ohio, and it may hit West Virginia. It's not going to hit me from what I've heard from the weather reports, but if there's already a tornado warning in Cleveland, I do expect it by 1 or 2 a.m. By the time you're back at work, I do expect some sort of power outage to take place in Pittsburgh. I don't think we'll have a tornado warning here, but I would not be shocked if we had a power outage in the next hour or two following our free agency conversation. So just keep an eye on that. We're hoping for the best. We're hoping for everybody to be safe, but gotta be prepared for that situation if it arises. Unfortunately,
right.
But
yeah, well, I hope all is well and you're safe during these.
Well, we've got a record 51 listeners on the stream. 50 of them are from X. One of them is from Twitch. So the 50 people on X listening to Emmanuel and I, thank you. It means a lot.
I greatly appreciate it. And I know I've been studying more March Madness this year, so I will be doing. I don't know if you're willing to. I don't know if you've been following it, so I was gonna ask you if you wanted to do the podcast, probably either Sunday night or probably Monday.
I'm going to do a live stream because I have a March Madness webpage that I set up through HTML code. And I'm going to be doing a live stream as soon as the brackets come out. Like, as soon as the brackets are released and they announce what teams are in each bracket, I'm going to be typing the teams up and the seedings and everything. And then,
well, I'll be more than happy to join that live stream.
Yeah, because that's going to be 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, 3 your time. And we also have a partnership with Beat the Book. Beat the Book, they're a sports betting app. They're trying to help me build my platform up. And I've got a phone call with the guy for Beat the Book tomorrow afternoon at 12:30. But we were going to post a link to the Beat the Bet thing in our March Madness live stream for Sunday. I was thinking having you on would help as far as the engagement, as far as the viewership goes. Because
no, I did some research on a few teams. I already did a team watch on Crate. I have at the stage where I do a little TikTok video, a team watch for each team. I only did one, but I have a couple more that I'm already ready and going. My next one will probably be Iowa State, and I'm probably gonna have Tennessee and Kentucky next.
Yeah.
Those following. I should get it released hopefully by Saturday. This is my schedule tonight and tomorrow is gonna be really busy. So I should hopefully be posting it by Saturday.
So Marquez Brown, 1 year, $7 million deal with the Chiefs. That's the latest transaction. I've just pulled up the transactions on SpotTrack. The Chiefs have re-signed Derek Nottie. So not only is Chris Jones back, so is Derek Nottie. Cedric Wilson Jr. is going to be replacing Michael Thomas. 2-year contract with the Saints. A.J. Dillon's back in Green Bay with Josh Jacobs. That is going to be a lethal 1-2 punch.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I really like that. And that's actually a really good deal for the Chiefs as well.
Yeah.
Just to get a 1-year deal for Marquise Brown. See how it goes and everything. I think definitely need to boost their receiving core. So this was a really nice upgrade for the Chiefs. Definitely. I really like this move for them. Obviously, they let MBS go. Valdez.
So the Browns have replaced Anthony Walker Jr., who's now in the Dolphins, with Devin Bush. They downgraded inside linebacker. Devin Bush, there's a reason he was on the bench with Seattle all of last year, and he was benched by the Steelers. So I don't understand that one, but hey. You know, it is what it is. I do think it's going to be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. Chris, I want to ask you this. What team do you believe has a really good chance of like really nailing this draft? In terms of like they're in position to have a good draft.
I think it's got to be, the Bears have picks 1 and 9. I think the Commanders have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds of the draft. It's just an insane amount of picks. Like, I think the Arizona Coyotes have 20 picks. 20 of their 34 draft picks from 2024 to 2027 are in the first 3 rounds of the NHL draft. I would love to see an NFL team with that much draft capital. Unfortunately, NFL GMs actually know how precious draft capital is compared to other sports. So I don't think we'll see that for that reason. Malik Harrison signed a 1-year extension. Tyus Bowser, so edge rusher, receiver, those are going to be positions the Ravens potentially upgrade. So the Bills got Curtis Samuel. It's a 3-year, $24 million deal, $8 million per year. Hayden Hurst got released today by the Panthers.
I think he's signing with the Chargers, if I'm not mistaken. I heard Because Greg Roman is the offensive coordinator. Because like I was reuniting with Greg Roman. He's the offensive coordinator for Chargers. If I'm not mistaken, Hayden Hurst should be signed with the Chargers.
Sheldon Rankins signed with the Bengals yesterday. I thought that was a good move for the Bengals.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Best replacement you could have gotten for DJ Reader. Bosa's going to agree to a restructured deal. Poona Ford is going to be a 34 defensive end. The Chargers are going to have pick 110 now. There's no news, but Michael Hawk and Alaric Jackson both got tenders. Darius Williams is going to be on the Rams. So is Colby Parkinson. I think the Rams have had a good offseason. So Neville Gallimore's probably going to replace Christian Wilkins. I don't necessarily think that's an upgrade or downgrade. Shaq Barrett's going to be on the Dolphins with Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, but those guys both tore their ACL very late in the year, so Barrett probably will start out the year in the starting lineup, I would think.
Right.
Nate Peterman signs a contract with the Saints, so the Saints have decided to replace Jameis Winston with Nate Peterman. So if Derek Carr gets injured, we're going to have to deal with Nate Peterman at quarterback. I think Taysom Hill would do better at quarterback than Nate Peterman. I'm trying to understand the thought process here in New Orleans. Come on. Give me something to go with here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about Nate Peterman. I don't know.
That's your backup quarterback if Derek Carr gets injured. I don't understand it. I don't. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's back with the Eagles. Montravius Adams back. Deshaun Elliott signs a 2-year, $6 million deal. He will be a safety for depth. He wasn't bad in Detroit last year.
He was not bad.
Yeah. George.
I know he's a former Raven.
Yeah. So George Fant and Abraham Lucas are probably going to compete for the right tackle job. That's good. I mean, Charles Cross was a staple at left tackle last year. Jordan Whitehead heads to Tampa Bay as a strong safety, replacing Ryan Neal. Nick Westbrook Akine is back. Nick Folk is back. Mason Rudolph signing. Some of these teams, it just feels like they're throwing money around. I don't know. I don't feel like Tennessee. There's a lot of teams that I don't know if I feel like they've checked off every box. But it's interesting. We're going to see more free agency news tomorrow. Jonah Williams is going to replace DJ Humphries. I think Humphries and Tyron Smith, I think one of those two is going to get picked up tomorrow because Friday, it just feels like a left tackle day tomorrow. I mean, you got Tyron Smith still on the market. DJ Humphries got cut by the Cardinals. He's still on the market. It feels like tomorrow we're going to see a left tackle picked up. Bakhtiari's on the market. I mean, the left tackle market hasn't really shaped itself out. But at the same time, this is such a good offensive tackle draft. I think the teams are waiting a little bit to see what could happen.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree because they want to see how that goes. But I'm surprised Bakhtiari's not being considered for the Jets. I'm surprised, the Aaron Rodgers, really good friend,
Yep. David Bakhtiari might be Robert F. Kennedy's Secretary of State. That's a joke because Aaron Rodgers is his vice president nominee. And if Aaron Rodgers does become his vice president, he'll make Bakhtiari Secretary of State. Or would he be Secretary of Defense because he's an offensive tackle? See?
They will be having good cornbread.
Yes, they will be having good cornbread. They'll be having cornbread with Sauce Gardner's sauce on it at the White House. Sorry, Emmanuel, you set me up for that one.
I know. Oh, man. the folks listening, with the whole corporate joke, it goes back to my podcast. I always have Chris on in regards to basketball, and I had this moment when quick story. This moment when I was ranting about the Celtics, that how they're going to beat the Warriors in the NBA Finals a few years ago. Well, that backfired. I'm happy as heck. For those that don't know me, I am a Laker fan. So, well, me and Chris are both Laker fans.
Yes.
So just keep that in mind. So I had this little rant, like people thought I was actually a Celtics fan, because I was talking about how the Celtics were going to beat the Warriors, and then Shaun came up with the idea, said, "Man, what kind of Cedric Maxwell?" Because Cedric Maxwell's nickname was Cornbread. He said, so we've been using that as an inside joke ever since.
Yep.
Ever since the Celtics played the Warriors in the NBA Finals. So, yeah.
It's become a recurring joke. I think I handed out my first dry cornbread draft grade during the MLS draft in 2024 because a player who had 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 points went in the top 10. And he was the worst defender on his team. I could not figure out the thought process in picking a player that early in the draft if they've got no points or one shutout and they're the worst defender on their team. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But hey, Jerry Tillery's a Viking. Harrison Smith restructured. Trent Sherfield's a Viking. But the Vikings are trying to make as little signings as possible with the limited cap space they have. Javon Kinlaw's a Jet. Lakai Fotu's a Jet. I like the depth the Jets have at defensive tackle heading into this year. I think that's an area that really has been underlooked.
Right. And who is their running back?
Breece Hall. Breece Hall's the Jets running back. They got rid of Dalvin Cook.
No. I'm talking about for the Vikings.
Ty Chandler. Ty Chandler. He's a 5th-round pick out of North Carolina. Ty Chandler. He's better in pass pro than Madison, and he's still on a rookie deal. That's probably why the Vikings moved on from Madison. That, and it's cleared up cap space.
Do you think they'll draft a running back?
I could see them picking a running back. I could see them getting McCarthy at 11 behind Darnold, and I could see them getting Corum and pairing him with McCarthy.
Right. But for some odd reason, I think Harbaugh's going to figure out a way to get Edwards is the backup running back for Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Edwards, I have a gut feeling.
He's in next year's draft, I believe.
Oh, so he's staying another year, Edwards.
Yeah, Donovan Edwards.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Oh, I thought he was in this year's draft. Okay. For some odd reason, I think he's going to get Blake Corum in this year's draft. Harbaugh's going to get a Michigan guy.
Yeah.
I somehow, some way, he's going to get a Michigan guy in this draft. My personal opinion. I think Blake Corum will be a Charger. That's my prediction. And I do believe Frank Gore Jr. will be a 49er.
They could go defense because they did hire Michigan's defensive coordinator. Mike Sainristil, Chris Jenkins Jr. would both be appealing options for that Charger defense. You could play Chris Jenkins Jr. at 34 defensive end. You could play Sainristil at corner. And the Michigan safeties are also in this draft. If you wanted to pick up a Ron Moore, that's also an option.
Yeah. Or is it a possibility they could take a Roman Wilson at wide receiver?
Yeah. I could see Roman Wilson on the Chargers. I could definitely see that. If they pass on a receiver at 5, I could definitely see that. But if they do take a receiver later like they did last year, I don't know if Roman Wilson will be there in day 3. I feel like he's going to get picked by somebody in the first 3 rounds of the draft.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Yeah, just something tells me that they're, he's going to get either round 2 or round 3.
Yeah.
I believe he's going to be drafted. If you get him around 4, that's excellent value.
It is. I just don't believe he'll get picked there.
Exactly. Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. I don't know if I told you this, Chris. I know I'm going back to the Vikings. Obviously, And so I had this theory of now T. Higgins, right? Yeah, they placed a franchise tag on him.
Yeah, the Bengals reportedly offered, I don't know if the rumor was true, but it was reportedly 2 first-round picks and Higgins for Jefferson. The Vikings were like, nah, we'll do that for Burrow. We'll trade Jefferson for Burrow, but not Higgins. You're not getting Burrow. You're not getting Burrow. You have a better chance of finding a winning lottery ticket that Leif Erikson didn't cash than you do of getting Joe Burrow. You're not getting Burrow, Minnesota. I'm sorry. You have a better chance of finding a winning lottery ticket that Leif Erikson didn't cash under some cornbread. Like it's the napkin or whatever. You have a better chance of discovering that than you do of getting Burrow. The Bengals are not trading Burrow. That's not part. That's not.
Hey, I agree. Yeah, honestly, to me, that's a fair offer. Just think about it. T. Higgins actually puts up wide receiver 1 numbers.
And you're getting 2 first-round picks for him.
Exactly. So you're getting basically a number 1 receiver in return to pair up with Jordan Addison, who had a really good rookie year.
Yeah. I would think of that deal because you're getting 2 years of first-round picks.
Right.
Oh.
To me, that's a fair deal. Me personally, I would have offered 1 first-round pick in Higgins.
Yeah.
Jefferson.
But the Vikings are acting like that's not a fair deal and playing the victim when in reality, not only is that a fair deal, you're kind of ripping off the Bengals if you take that deal. Whereas you didn't want to take that deal. And what happens if you pay Jefferson, he starts getting injured again like he did last year? Then you're going to look foolish for not taking that deal. And then you're going to be getting less value than you would have gotten initially. But I don't think anything's going to happen at Jefferson. But yeah.
Me personally, I would have took that deal.
Yeah.
If I was Minnesota.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Man, that's a really fair deal. I'm surprised they didn't take it because you're getting that 1 receiver in return. So I just don't get it. It's I mean they lost Cousins, and I just don't know. And I know the Minnesota. I do believe somehow, some way, Minnesota's going to get a quarterback. There's been rumors in regards with J.J. McCarthy, or there's been a good amount of Vikings fans campaigning for Michael Penix. You know, there's a good amount of Vikings fans. They're campaigning for it. And basically, the campaign is kind of like, well, he wears a purple velvet do-rag. So let's keep it in the purple family, you know, because he played at Washington. So me personally, I like Penix to Minnesota. I'm not a big J.J. McCarthy.
Darnold got a 1-year deal. The only other quarterback the Vikings are rumored in besides Darnold was Zach Wilson. They think those are the only 2 quarterbacks with starter upside. The quarterback Denver wanted as a starter was Winston because he knows Sean Payton's offense, but the Browns poached him away. So the Broncos are going to have to take a quarterback at 12. They're going to have to. Their hands are tied, essentially. All the free agency options are gone. So I think the Broncos are going to have to take a quarterback because they don't pick again until the 3rd round. I think the Broncos don't have a 2nd round pick, and then they have 1 3rd-round pick. So they're going to have to. The Broncos are going to have to pick a quarterback. Otherwise, it's going to be Jarrett Stidham. And frankly, I don't think there's a good quarterback option left in free agency. You could trade for Justin Fields.
To me, that makes a lot of sense for them because you don't have to give up much draft capital to get Fields.
Yeah.
Why not take a shot at Fields, which I don't understand what the Broncos are doing. And they might not. And truth be told, I don't think they might not get the quarterback they want at 12 because, like you said, it's going to be a quarterback run early within the first 5 or 6 picks.
There's going to be 3 quarterbacks off the board. There is the possibility the Giants reach for McCarthy, but I think they go O'Dunes. I think the Vikings will probably take McCarthy at 11 unless they get Zach Wilson because, again, there were 2 quarterbacks the Vikings viewed as starters with Cousins gone. Sam Darnold was their plan A. Their plan B was Zach Wilson. If they get Zach Wilson before the draft, I won't mock a quarterback to them at 11. But if they don't, that's not Sam Darnold is not going to keep me from mocking them a quarterback at 11. But if they get Darnold and Wilson with the fifth-year tender, they can apply on Wilson. Okay, that's enough for me to say, you know what? They don't have to draft a quarterback at 11 if they don't like what's on the board. The Broncos, they feel like it feels like they have to draft a quarterback at 12. The Raiders don't have to. They have Minshew. They have Aiden O'Connell. I feel like they would only give trade for Fields if the Bears settled for like a 5th or 6th round pick. And frankly, I don't think the Bears are going to do that. I think if the Bears get anything less than a 5th round pick, they're going to say, you know what, let's keep Fields and redshirt Caleb Williams. Not tender Fields. We're just going to keep him this year and redshirt Caleb Williams and then play Caleb in 2025.
Right. Well, also, I forgot what I was going to say. I can see Caleb possibly being redshirted as well, but I feel like with the Raiders, I feel like the only way they will take a quarterback is if Jaden Daniels falls to them, which is highly unlikely. You know?
No, that's not going to happen. I think.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I feel like that's the only way they will take a quarterback if Jaden Daniels, because obviously he has that connection with Antonio Pierce because he was a D coordinator over at Arizona State, and Jaden Daniels went to Arizona State, before he transferred to LSU. So I can really, that's the only way I can see the Raiders taking a quarterback is Jaden Daniels. Other than that, right now I don't see it. They signed Minshew, and there was rumors about them. Obviously, I don't know if they put an offer up for Justin Fields, but something I don't know if.
And there's reports the Raiders are still interested in Justin Fields, but I don't think they're willing to give up a day 1 or day 2 pick to get Justin Fields. They were never interested in giving up a day 1 pick, and honestly, I don't think they're interested in giving up a day 2 pick for him.
Right. I mean, right now, what his highest value is around 4 pick.
I would think so. I mean, the Patriots, they have Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi. The Steelers have Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett. The Vikings have Sam Darnold. I would not be surprised if they traded Zach Wilson for a 6th or 7th. I don't think it'll happen now, but I think the Vikings will try to trade for Zach Wilson, but they'll wait until after the Fields trade to initiate the trade, because I do think if there were rumors that the Vikings wanted Zach Wilson before free agency, I do think they're going to get him, but they're going to wait to see what Fields gets first before they make the Jets a formal offer for Wilson. I think that's how it's going to play out, because they want to give up a fraction of what the team gives up for Justin Fields to get Zach Wilson. So if Fields only gets a 5th round pick, the Vikings are only going to offer a 7th for Wilson, but the Jets would probably take it at that point out of desperation. Patriots got a 6th for Mac Jones. I think you're probably going to get a 6th or a 7th for Zach Wilson, and I'm leaning more towards 7th at this point if you trade for him. But if you trade for him, you don't have to draft your quarterback. You have Darnold and Wilson, the 2 Jets that busted as your QBs for next year, and you don't have to draft a QB at 11. You can look at other positions. You can look at defense. You can look at offensive tackle if you release Brian O'Neill to save cap space. You can go a number of different directions, and there's no pressure on you to draft a quarterback. Right now, it feels like there's pressure on the top 3 teams in the Broncos to draft a quarterback. Everybody else can just do whatever. The way this free agency's taken shape, I would say that's how it looks like right now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm curious to see how free agency plays out down the line.
Yeah, as far as March Madness that goes, on Saturday's podcast, I'll recap all the free agency signings once again. Joey and I will give you our MLB playoff winners. We gave you MLB division by division previews last Saturday, and we are going to talk about some of the conference champions in March Madness. I had a group of teams. Tennessee. I like Tennessee. I like Duke. I was going to pick Kansas as a dark horse. Now I'm not so sure about Kansas after last night's game against Cincinnati. So,
Yeah, I know where Kansas is trending down. That's all I can say. They've been trending down big time over the last 5 to 10 games.
yep.
So that's all I'm gonna say because I know. Because I'll really get it because I was looking at some metrics yesterday with some teams, but I didn't really finish like certain teams. So metrics, but I've completed Iowa State. I just have to post it. And, Tennessee and Kentucky. So it's gonna be some metrics and stats.
Yeah, Kentucky and Duke are the two teams with the most NBA prospects. But I also feel like Tennessee has a far more complete roster than Kentucky as far as momentum, as far as just executing at the right time of the year.
Yeah.
I could see both Tennessee and Kentucky in the Final Four. But at the same time, I like Duke. I like Houston looks really good this year. Connecticut looks good. There's a handful of these teams that really look like they could go the distance. But it's not as I feel like with all the players, with 4 of the top 5 players not in college basketball, 4 of the top 5 NBA draft picks, 5 of the top 6 of the top 8. So 6 of the top 8 players are not in the NBA draft right now are not in college basketball. So that's a big reason why I believe this tournament feels more unpredictable compared to previous years.
Yeah, very true. That and the transfer portal played a key part with some of these teams. Trying to get to that next level. That definitely played a huge part. It's really shaped college basketball, not just college sports, but college basketball, but college football as well. Transfers are making a huge, more of a huger impact than ever before. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, this is how the way I see it. But yeah.
And then on Sunday, I will post a thumbnail for March Madness Selection Sunday. But it's getting to that point. We've been on the live stream for about an hour now. It's 11:56. I'm guessing Emmanuel's got to resume work at 12:30 or 1 my time. And I feel like we've covered everything as far as free agency goes. I've scrolled through every team on Spot Track for free agency. I feel like we've covered everything we needed to cover, and we did it in a reasonable amount of time. But again, I want to thank our audience. 51 users on X and 1 user on Twitch came in and listened to Emmanuel and I live. We really appreciate it, guys. And if you want it, and if you had some questions in the chat room on Restream, I would answer them at this time. But nobody typed a question. But we still appreciate the audience tonight, guys. Well done. So we're going to sign off. Enjoy your Thursday evenings and enjoy these next 3 days of college basketball conference tournament play before the brackets come out on Sunday. I'll invite Emmanuel to Sunday's Selection Sunday live stream, and he might do a live stream right after that on Sportshead Radio later that night. So keep in touch with both of us over the next few days for college basketball updates. That's Emmanuel Watson. I'm Chris Ransom. We're signing off from the Utopia of Sports. Enjoy your Thursday.